Oh, you remember that Mardu Land Destruction deck that we played against the other day? Well, it made its way into the 5-0 deck list dump. So maybe the pilot was actually cooking. Let's find out. Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another Legacy video. And I've just got to play this deck list. I've just got to know if this is actually good. So I'm going to use one of my Dealer's Choice donation deck lists. Thank you very much to Nicholas for supporting this video, by the way. And we're going to try it out. So this is essentially a Mardu Land Destruction deck where the overall concept is to run your opponents out of basic lands by playing a bunch of things that can make them find basic lands. And while they might get a basic land for the first couple of times they do that, given the overabundance of things that can make them find basic lands, they're going to run out. And a lot of legacy decks have like 2 basic lands. Now, some of these cards can be used on your own flagstones for value, which is kind of neat as well. This is a deck that is very, very, very light on actual win conditions. You will see that we have 14 creatures in the main deck, and they're not really big bodies for the most part. So this is a deck that is settling in for extremely long games. And accordingly, the Yorion in the sideboard should be very, very reasonable. There's just a wild selection of cards in this main deck here. There's both Pest Control and Wrath of the Skies as sweepers for decks like Energy. There's main deck Surgicals and main deck Disruptor Flutes. This is a wild assortment of cards, and it is just as wild over there in the sideboard as well. Presumably, this deck is gunning for things like Tron, with Wasteland, Ghost Quarter, Price of Freedom, Cleansing Wildfire, and White Orchid Phantom as ways to disrupt the lands and like the ability to attack the hand and disruptor flute things as well. There's presumably a decent chance that you win that matchup, although the deck is very powerful and I imagine the Grim Monolith draws still get out ahead of you. There is a lot to theoretically like here. I do think you have a lot of dead cards versus spell-based combo. Like you have Erode and Swords and Galvanic Discharge and Pest Control and Wrath of the Skies and Solitude. So I expect that overall the combo matchups aren't going to feel great. And a good portion of the sideboard is things that would be good against combo accordingly. I suspect that we're going to end up in a lot of situations where we are forced to leave in some pretty questionable cards versus combo. And I don't know if we're going to clock combo very quickly given our incredibly low creature count. You know, there's nothing here like a Barrogoyf that can just come down on 3 mana and chunk the opponent for 6 with like a hefty graveyard or something. Phlage is about the closest thing we can do to that, and that requires a good number of cards in the graveyard. But maybe we'll just blow up a bunch of my combo opponent's lands and they won't do anything, and then we win on turn 10 or whatever. So folks, should you find that you need any magic cards, and there's a lot of spicy ones that you might not have in this deck, please consider getting them from my sponsor, TOAMagic.com, and when you do, use promo code ThrabenU to save yourself a little bit on the order. With that being said, let's battle. Alright, just no. We're a Mardu deck and we have 1 white pip. That is not gonna cut it for me. White Orchid Phantom, blow up one of your dual lands, surgically extract it. Okay. The first 2 opening hands do not inspire confidence here. I do think I am supposed to keep the surgical over the Solitude, though. Like, I already have a Swords. The White Orchid Phantom is fucking terrible if my opponent just goes fetch pass like that. Oh god. The shadowy backstreet here. I have no idea whether or not that card is good or bad right now. I might just keep it, and if my opponent doesn't do anything, I will cycle it. Like, playing the white Orchid Phantom outright just as a 2/2 first striker is not what I am seeking to do with this deck. Opponent fetches basic for a non-basic land, unfortunately for us. Opponent looks like they were considering casting a Brainstorm and thought the better of it. It is a combo deck of some kind, which means that, like, the Pest Control Swords type stuff is not going to be good. Fuck. I could cycle Pest Control here and attempt to hit exactly Solitude. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Get Plateau. Cycle for 2. Thoughtseize is a little late. I'm just gonna make an extra land drop here. Omniscience means we're gonna die. If an Atraxa got put in and I could swords that, like, that's somewhat reasonable. Flow state is happening. I think the best thing I can do before this game ends is Surgical Extraction and see if my opponent's got any spice in their deck. Yorion revealed. I might tag Flow State right now before my opponent can look any further for additional copies of Flow State. All right, well, opponent's hand is real bad. So in game 1, the black is for removal and Thoughtseize. And we will just fully see how good this Brainstorm is. It leads into a stock up, which is not great for me. Leading into another Brainstorm. Lotus Petal. I'm going to assume that some number of these lands are gone. Alright, that does lead into an Atraxa. I currently know that my opponent has Force of Will. So swordsing here doesn't make sense. Oh, they're going to have multiple Force of Wills. And another Atraxa. Let's save 2 minutes of my life. GG's, I think you've got this one. So, actively good. Containment Priest. Blasts. Things I'll think about, probably because I need to fill slots, are these 6. I don't think we're going to go for, like, Null Rods on Lotus Petals levels of deep. Galvanic Discharge, instantly out. Pest Control, Wrath of the Skies, instantly out. And then I'm at 81. The Swords and Erodes are things that I would not like to cast, because I would hope that the creatures don't get in play, but realistically, I probably need some of that stuff. How many do I want in my Yorion deck is, I think, then the question. Rim 1 Swords. Have 5 of those plus Solitudes to answer a creature that slips through. I mean, it technically plays Magic the Gathering. I'm just not excited about anything that it does. And this also just runs into the same problem of, like, fetch land pass being very awkward. I think I just mulligan this. Sure. Bad lands for this stuff, put back Erode, I think is my plan. Land and pass. That is a wastelandable land. I am getting Thoughtseized. Do I have a theater? Which surveil lands do I have? I think it's Shadowy Backstreet and Elegant Parlor. I don't have a theater specifically to get. I think that means I am just not fetching here. Having drawn another land, I will just wasteland my opponent here. That is fine. And now here's this, like, fetch land go problem, right? Ooh, that's a very nice draw. Very, very happy with that draw. Opponent keeps their polluted delta a polluted delta. There is this color situation where I'm a Mardu deck and I have 2 wastelands and I have 3 colors of things that I would like to play. Black-white gets me my most important cards, but bricks 2 cards in my hand. Accordingly, I think I am going to plateau here and play this out. It's just awkward because I know my opponent's deck has Fatal Push. So, like, they might end up Fatal Pushing this instead of the Bowmasters if I play this first. Like, this is the cost of having, like, Wasteland and Ghost Quarter in your 3-color deck. Oh. Yep. Such is life. Fucking mana, man. Cleansing Wildfire is currently mana neutral for my opponent. I know they have a basic swamp in their deck. This draws a card, which is kind of cool. I think I am supposed to just completely destroy a land and hope to just draw more mana. It's just very, very awkward. There is a Lorien revealed for Undercity Sewers. Ancient Tomb comes down. It is a flow state. And cycling another Lorien revealed for an Underground Sea. So my opponent has more lands coming. And I cannot cast spells. It seems like this first round is just my deck losing to itself. Alright, show and tell is happening. I'll put in the best thing that I can put in. I do not have an out to this Atraxa currently. I have plenty of them in my deck. I can cast a Swords. I can cast a Solitude by pitch casting White Orchid Phantom. I'm not dead to this. So Fatal Push, Stock Up, Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal. So my Bowmasters is dead whenever my opponent wants it dead, which is just now, so that they don't have to discard. Alright, I hit a land drop. The Cleansing Wildfire stuff is pretty terrible. The best thing it does is cantrip. Get a scrub land here to open up my other colors. I can do the White Orchid Phantom that I can chump block with, or I can just Cleansing Wildfire and draw a new card. I think I'm going to draw a new card. I can't really pinch my opponent on mana here. I'm going to leave them with the Ancient Tomb that could deal them more damage. I will have a long way to go in terms of reducing my opponent's life total to 0. Assuming they connect with an Atraxa 2 or 3 times before I answer it. There's Stock Up. I guess the dream is like draw in a road, pave the way for it with Thoughtseize. Another Ancient Tomb. Opponent might just be discarding at end of turn here. Down to 11. Elegant Parlor is not doing me any favors. White Orchid Phantom is not exactly great. It like buys a turn of chump blocking, but I'd rather just draw an answer to an Atraxa outright. I guess ping an Ancient Tomb here. There is another island. There's City Sewers. Another Stock Up. So woefully behind here. And I'm going to lose my own Thoughtseize to Thoughtseize. Yeah. So now whatever I draw that can answer Atraxa is now easily Force of Willable. I guess I'm deck thinning. Cleansing Wildfire on my own land here. Guess I get things that contribute towards a Phlage count. Surgical Extraction is the draw. Boil, not great in the face of an Atraxa that I have to answer. There's not already a Force of Will in Graveyard that I can surgical out. I will eat 7, go to 4. If I play and resolve Phlage, that puts me to 7, which is still dead to this. Opponent is just discarding cards. That is an Emrakul. If I want to surgical something and see what is in my opponent's hand, this is my window to do so. I could like take Brainstorm here as something that my opponent... Jesus fucking... Hey... I mean, that's about how bad I thought it was going to be if my opponent was just, like, playing draw go with that many cards in hand and not having anything reasonable to cast. But, like, that's all 4 Force of Wills. Solitude does not get there. GG's. We played Magic for a little while, but I think we were always on the back foot. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I love them. I have over 1,000 deck lists here. And I think the thing that I like the most about them is they're more than just a basic deck builder. If you need information about your next pre-release or where you can get cards, they have that sort of stuff here too. Whether you need to manage your collection or just a couple of decks, Moxfield does it all. So go check them out. All right. Opening hand has Magic the Gathering cards. I guess I keep. I have 2 lands. I can cast some land destruction things. We are paired against a Prismatic Vista deck instantly, which probably means that this sort of stuff is significantly less good, and this sort of stuff is significantly less good. It's gotta be one of those sorts of leagues. Opponent fetches. Alright, Volcanic Island, Stoneforge Mystic. Okay, at least my Swords to Plowshares type cards have valid targets. Opponent gets a Batter Skull. I think I am going to go for untapped white here and Swords immediately. Extra. Well, I'm getting a white pip no matter what. Do a second plateau. Swords a Stoneforge. And it does work. This destroys any land. This destroys any land. This also can destroy an artifact. Let's take out that Volcanic Island. And I could end up surgically extracting those. I found Pest Control. I don't think I'm going to do that. My opponent's deck might legitimately have like pre-war formal wear in it. in which case I might need to remove a creature from the graveyard at some point in this game. There's another Stoneforge Mystic, which I can answer via Solitude plus Pest Control. Meteor Sword. Sure. Found a Flagstones. Alright, Solitude, pitch Pest Control. Answer a Stoneforge that way. I get to cantrip with this. I could hit a Surveil land, I guess. I maybe shouldn't even just use this. I'm trying to, in theory, keeping my opponent from getting to Batterskull mana in the first place. I don't know how likely that is to actually occur. Alright, opponent fetches. 4 basic islands. Jace the Mind Sculptor. Well, hopefully my Orcish Bowmaster resolves. My opponent certainly has more basics. I need to play black here. I'll pass the turn. Brainstorm is occurring. Here's Orcish Bowmasters being a Jace. Eat swords. That means that my opponent is not Batterskulling this turn. Like, that's the good part. Opponent ponders. Game 1 Surgical feels heinous. Solitude is a castable Magic the Gathering card. Not excited about drawing it. It might keep me from losing this game to Jace. I will pass the turn there, kind of operating under the assumption that my opponent might tap out for Batterskull. After they do that, I might Surgical Swords, Solitude Germ, and go in on Jace. That's really annoying. Alright, I am going to Surgical Sword. I will pay the life for that. Opponent has back to basics, which is not surprising. Alright, opponent had 1 Volcanic Island as their splash mana. They have Mountain. Got Riddlers to think about. 2 Jaces. No pre-war formalware. Alright, I guess as this bizarro deck that, like, very specifically cares about number of lands that my opponent has, like, specific quantities for things like surgicaling them, I'm going to take a screenshot of that. Okay. There's 1 more Batterskull and Meteor Sword there. And then, because I don't use my mana unless I do this now, I can play this, and then I can always kill one of the 2 Planeswalkers. Oh wait, hold on, a land drop hasn't been made yet? No, I can't. My opponent can go land, Prismatic Vista. Oh, there was also a Jace activation still. Yep. So now fetch Prismatic Vista into Prismatic Ending. No, there's not another basic planes. Prismatic Vista fetches Mountain at this stage. That's not quite as clean as I thought it was going to be. I guess I can exhaust my opponent's white sources much faster than I can their blue sources. Okay, now I know. I'm gonna get my ass kicked by back to basics. Just for the record. Alright, Solitude gets bounced. Saw that coming. Flow state happens. Opponent could hit Tundra or a fetch for white. Then they get to keep both of their Planeswalkers. Yeah, that is not a fetch for white. That is just a fetch for mountain or island. That's a ponder. Opponent's discarding that other Prismatic Vista. So yeah, combat. I think I killed Jace. By the Teferi awkwardness here. And I'm interested in turning plains into mountain. Yeah. I think I don't play Solitude until my opponent plays Batterskull. I will then put Yorion into hand. Does mean that I'm not immediately answering Teferi, which is a little annoying. Opponent brainstorms. I maybe need to be thinking about clock from the very moment that I start playing a game with this deck. We are going to be playing excruciatingly long games of Magic today. Plan your potty breaks in advance. Batterskull resolves. So the hope here is that my opponent does not have Force of Will immediately. I'm fine doing this. Yeah. Keep the untapped one. And then, like, get a Surveil out of this. I might legitimately want to find my basics because back to basics is a thing. So presumably my opponent has sculpted. Never mind. Okay. Same overall effect. So I've trapped a bunch of white cards in my opponent's hand, but this Batterskull is still a problem. think I am not blocking or anything here. I'll just use my life total as a resource in the short term. 2, 3, 4, 5. I really want to Yorion with Caracas up. So here we go. That is a Force of Will, unfortunately. Yeah. I will get the basic swamp here. Again, I have a back to basics on the other side of the battlefield that I theoretically need to respect. That to fairy. Then at the very least, it can't bounce one of my creatures out of play. So, I would love to use this Thoughtseize to answer Batterskull permanently. I think I will just pass the turn. And we're going to stare at each other for a while. Yep. This turn, opponent does want to attack with the Batterskull. I'll just jump. I could attempt to trade, and then tap to fairy down by 1. Yeah, sure. Now I don't have the Yorion kind of changing my math of like wanting to blink the Solitude. Alright, there is back to basics. I'm just confirming. I believe I have exactly 2 basic lands. I have Plains, Swamp. I don't have Mountain, which is pretty annoying. So if I play this, this is permanently 1 mana source down. Annoying. I'm gonna play this to have a flyer. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. I have no basic land, and then I can just take a Surveil land out of my deck here. That can kill Teferi. It feels like threading the needle on the Batterskull is more important. I should maybe just concede this game now. I think I'm losing this game to back to basics, and I eat a lot of clock trying to play this game out. Like, I need to win 2 games in 15 minutes, which I think is legitimately tough for this deck. Batterskull comes back down. Teferi just pluses, so now I can't kill Teferi with White Orchid Phantom. I think I am going to concede this game here. I think it is possible that I can win this game. I think it just eats so much clock. I am going to try to win the next 2. I'm into Boil. I'm into Prismatic Ending. And I'm into Pyroblast. My opponent has, like, relatively few win conditions. So if I answer... Mostly, if I answer the Batterskull successfully, I probably just win. Which means I probably play Null Rod. Probably don't play Wrath of the Skies if I am trying to Null Rod. Pest Control can probably go. Rupture Flute was a thing I could be drawing towards if I attempt to play that game out. Oh, can we get these Surgicals out of my deck? Really? I could just play 1 Wrath of the Skies as an incredibly inefficient answer to, like, Stoneforge plus Batterskull. I guess it's something that technically answers a back to basics at 5 mana, or a little less if I Galvanic Discharge. Ugh. I probably keep this. And I probably Cabal Therapy Stoneforge because I am not equipped to deal with one in the early game with this specific hand. Stoneforge Mystic. Nice. It's just kind of unfortunate that my opponent's deck has so many basic lands, making things like White Orchid Phantom, like, very, very noticeably worse. And Ponder. I need red mana. I don't have a basic mountain in my deck, so White Orchid Phantom can't fix for it by, like, blowing up Caracas. But we're aiming towards a longer game that does this. I know that my opponent has Brainstorm. I think I'm going to attempt to get Force of Will out of their hand right now, accordingly. And not, like, pass and give them the chance to end of turn Brainstorm in response to this Bowmasters. If this Bowmasters resolves, I also get Cabal Therapy, so I don't think there's any way you can let the Bowmasters resolve. That is Force of Will. Oh, exiling another Force of Will, I see. The Flooded Strand comes down. Elegant Parlor is a good pickup. Totally happy with that. I'll just say no to the land. We'll try to force my opponent to make a decision about what they want to do with their Flooded Strand immediately. I guess there's also a timeline where I blow up one of my own lands so that I can better play around back to basics, but I think if my opponent casts back to basics on the next turn, I'm just dead anyway. So we are going to see the Brainstorm in response, and the fetch. The hope is that this just, like, eats a Swords to Plowshares so that some better creature later doesn't die to it. Then I untap and boil away 2 islands. Like, that's kind of the dream here. Boil's pretty bad if my opponent just, like, plays a fetch land and passes the turn. Yeah. Okay, I mean, this is something. We're going to go for the white mana here. An attempt to blow up that land while cantripping. We know that my opponent can replace it with another basic plains. There's 2 of them in the deck. I would not mind drawing another untapped red source. Bowmasters is fine. I think I will hold open this time, though. We don't know that my opponent just has a brainstorm this time. If back to basics happens, I do have a red elemental blast, but this won't untap for that. Brainstorm. Hello. King? We get to do the Orcish Bowmasters thing? No. No fun for Phil. 16. Apparently a very difficult brainstorm. I started talking about clock very early in game 1. I don't know that my opponent has time to go into the tank for 2 minutes on a brainstorm. Flooded Strand comes down. So, is the Jace the Mind Sculptor still in my opponent's hand? If I were them, it would probably be the top card of my library right now from the Cabal Therapy. I guess I don't really need this Orc Army token, right? I guess this is expendable. Name Jace. Yeah, it's not there. That's acceptable. I can boil for 1 land. I think I just get 2 or 3 lands by waiting here. Maybe I should put Yorion into my hand there. There's Vista. There's Teferi. I want my opponent to fetch more so I can just fully keep them off of Jace forever. I don't really want this one in play. I don't know, maybe I just have to let that resolve. I waste a turn of mana, and I will just red elemental blast Jace when Jace comes down. Yep. Nullrod's not what I'm looking for right now. So, do I even boil? I think no. I'm going to put Yorion into hand. I leave red open, though, so that if back to basics happens, I can red elemental blast afterwards. This is fucking weird magic. Maybe, like 2 or 3 turns ago, I was supposed to sorcery speed Bowmaster, rather than trying to hit Jace when Jace brainstormed, and just sorcery speed it, ping my opponent Cabal Therapy Jace. That was probably a better line than what I did. Meteor Sword. Yeah. Okay. Pyroblast is cool. I can't do multiple red elemental blast type things at the same time. I think I start here. Then swords this. And I guess I will just use my mana. My deck is very bad against my opponents just leaving fetch lands sitting in play. It not only disrupts these 2 mana lines, but also makes some of the sideboard haymakers like Boil very noticeably worse. Alright. Now I can get 2 things off of Boil. Oh, is it just tap out for Batterskull time? That's probably a 3rd basic island. It might be Tundra. Either way, I think it's something that Boil gets. Yeah, it is Batterskull. So I will just have to answer the Germ there. That's fine. And now this is Boil with Pyroblast backup. Get I guess I have to worry about Prismatic Ending answering Nullrod. I will take a hit for 4 and probably Surveil at end of turn. Surveiling doesn't give me another red source, which I would kind of like. I think I just need the Surveil value. Disruptor Flute. That does stuff. I think I'll just say no. Do I just tap out for Yorion? I'd rather do it with Caracas backup. I'm gonna play patiently here and use my life total as a resource. I don't think I currently want to erode the Germ token and give my opponent an island back. I'll pass the turn again. Take 4 here. Down to 10. Alright, this does stuff. So there's White Orchid Phantom. Opponent doesn't have any non-basic lands. I think I'm not going to blow up one of my own. Now I think I do some first strike nonsense, where I'll block and mark 2 damage on that, and then Galvanic Discharge, paying the red, send 2 damage at that to finish that off, saving 1 energy for later. Alright, there is an island. There is back to basics. I will need to find a red source to Pyroblast that. But I currently do have a threat in play. My opponent can do some stuff where they like Prismatic Ending Nullrod and then start trying to bounce Batterskull. That resolves. You're going to bounce my threat out of play. Yep. If I had a basic mountain, I would have a lot more lines available to me right now. I will erode that. This is giving my opponent a bunch of mana. I don't love that. But all I need is 1 fetch land, and then all my lands come back. Knock my opponent off of white in the short term. And again, we are eating so much clock playing Magic here. Riddler. Betcha. Ponder. And Riddler warps out. My opponent has a ton of cards in hand. My opponent has a Riddler in play. Hate that. Another land drop would, in theory, allow this to be equipped if Null Rod is taken out. I will just die to this in a couple of hits. I'll Solitude it if I don't draw a land on my turn, I think. Alright, there's Prismatic Ending. Bouncing Batterskull is live. And happens immediately. Devastating. Alright, Solitude. Junk this. Take out that. Batterskull is in hand. I have Cabal Therapy, in theory, to answer it. I just can't get this therapy to my graveyard or cast it. That is not good. More draw go. Opponent is discarding cards. There's a Flagstones, which is untapped. I'm passing the turn there. I can convert that into a basic plains via Wasteland. Press down is fine. Just trying to F6 as many of my opponent's turns as I can. So there's Batterskull coming back down, unfortunately. Not the one that destroys an artifact as well. Sure. Well, that kind of does a thing. Alright. Maybe Disruptor Flute this later. It is Force of Will time. I died a Batterskull in one more hit. Maybe I should not have been waiting on trying to draw a single target removal spell for Quantum Riddler. Yeah, I am dead there. GG. We played a lot of Magic, but it feels like a deck that has this many basic lands, and especially also back to basics, is just very well positioned against us. This deck's mana base is so bad. Like, I can't cast any of the spells in my hand unless you count Pitch Casting Solitude. I will mulligan this. Yikes. This also just feels terrible. I will pitch the Solitude here. And again, I have to pick which two of my colors I value immediately. It's very clearly this combination. Okay, so I just feel terrible here. My opponent has such strong cards in their hand, and I have main deck Surgical Extraction. Fuck. I can take Tamios and attempt to surgically extract them from the deck. I can take Flow States and do the same thing. Probably don't get to cast this second Thoughtseize. I probably lose it to an opposing Thoughtseize. I think I'm more scared of Flow State long term, but Tameo backed by Thoughtseize and Force of Will is problematic. This is rough. Already down a card from a mulligan, and my opponent is on the draw as well. I'm going to take Flow State and surgically extract Flow State in my opponent's draw step. Paying 2 life to do so. I'm already at 15. Alright, opponent lets it occur. Bam, 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 bam. Oh, they are Doomsday. I guess I will take a picture. Yeah, I feel like I'm just going to lose to this deck. My opponent goes Underground, Sea, and Thoughtseize here. I've lost my own Thoughtseize. I will attack their mana. I get 2 chances to kill Tameo with Swords to Plowshares. Let's remove this. Stop. Out of there. Opponent goes for Basic Island and Tameo. I will Swords Tameo on site, hoping that my opponent Force of Wills. So that's Teferi, Force of Will, Tameo down. And I will Swords this Tameo. Ghost Quarter as well. Were there dazes? There is a daze. Singleton daze. Okay. That's another Force of Will. It looks like my opponent does not have another basic. I believe this is just fully Sinkhole. Yep. So the hope is that this Tameo now just can't crack the clues before I find something reasonable to do. Fingers crossed. That is an uncastable card. Even if I had my Ghost Quarter, that wouldn't be castable. Enjoy your clues. Flagstones. Cleansing Wildfire, still uncastable. But opponent has 0 lands. Below Lotus Petal. Please don't have Brainstorm. Oh yeah, that's fine. Brainstorm putting me on a clock from the Tameo Planeswalker would be very, very bad. A very fast shuffle there. Blue number 3 hits play. Great Wraith cycles. Son of a gun. Alright, I have some things that answer Planeswalker Tameo. Surgical Extraction is not one of them. Deck. I will probably surgically extract Force of Will before casting a major spell that answers Tameo. Alright, opponent found mana. They have 2 Underground Seas and a Scrubland and a couple Trops in their deck. So I don't have the ability to, like, fully take them off of their card. Solitude does nothing here. I am just going to lose to a Tamiyo Ultimate next turn, unless I draw an answer to Tamiyo. Ponder's fine. Yeah, that's Tamiyo to 8. I have to draw a Road or Disruptor Flute, I think, this turn. Nope, that's another uncastable card. Yep. Tamiyo solos the game. And my spells aren't castable. I might play this one out after the Tamiyo emblem, because my opponent does still need to assemble enough raw mana to do a Thassa's Oracle kill. That's fine. Ponder's okay. Like, this is now, like, very, very, very much a miserable game of Magic. But maybe I can blow up enough lands where I could win. I find it unlikely, but possible. Thank you, deck. Good nuke, 3 clues, and a Lotus Petal. I will legitimately do that. So the result is that my opponent draws 1 card, and then I kill some clues. Another land hits play. Fairy happens. Tamiyo pluses. Fairy pluses. Another uncastable card. I think I'm going to Surgical Force of Wills now. I can't do it at instant speed anymore. Opponent uses a Force of Will on that. You've got it. Underground Sea comes down, and now the Doomsday thing is going to happen. I'm going to save 2 minutes of my life here. My opponent has got this one. They can draw a card immediately with Teferi and get this, and I don't have things that are relevant that can stop them. GG. Deck is so bad. Pest Control is the first thing that is coming out, followed by Wrath of the Skies. The Galvanic Discharge stuff is not exactly amazing. The only thing that Pest Control specifically does is answer Tamiyo Planeswalker, but like the Galvanic Discharge and Erode type stuff, in theory, are covering that niche as well, and I'm about to bring in Pyroblasts. My opponent has a pretty big smattering of blue-based dual lands and does not have basic Swamp. Oil is, I guess, acceptable. Deafening Silence is not an exciting card, neither is Surgical Extraction. I might play Deafening Silence to make Dark Ritual worse, because the fastest lines that my opponent's deck is capable of doing just vastly, vastly outspeed me. I could cut the 3 Surgicals and then have 4 Deafening Silence, 4 Dark Ritual-based lines. I think I'll do that. That gets me back to 80. I guess we keep that. I actually have my 3 colors this time. Exciting. Something like Plateau off the first one. Slow down some of my opponent's faster lines. The issue is that, like, flow state is just a thing that exists that lets my opponent comfortably play a long, grindy game. That's a Ponder, which is fine. So now this is just a land destruction spell. Opponent has 1 basic island. Yeah? Like a Scrub. 2 Price of Freedom. There's a sideboard basic plains. Fucking wild. Absolutely unexpected. Prismatic Ending, sure. Cycle? For sure. Alright, so now I can have Pyroblast and Bowmasters available. That seems fine. Delta comes down. Yup. There's Bowboy. In your face. I never get to do the cool thing. Do I just want to tag this Brainstorm? I think I just want to tag this Brainstorm. Get out of there. Solitude is kind of whatever. So that is a land destruction spell. It also could be another card in graveyard for Phlage. I think I'm going to put that on top. Send in with the Orc, and then Bowmaster again after no blocks for the additional point of damage. Opponent to 12. That is a flow state. All that there. I think overall I'm attacking black for casting Doomsday. Yeah and yeah. I found Ghost Quarter. Hell yeah. In for 3. I can attack basic planes here, or I can just Phlage, put you to 6, attack for 3, Phlage, you're dead. I think that line is better. Beautiful. Face. If I could take out a blue or black source there, I would probably go for it. Opponent to 5. Another flow state. They can find an answer to, like, a creature or something, but I imagine they're just dead to damage one way or another here. Yeah, okay, cool. Now we just have to do that when we're on the draw. Uh, on the draw, do I want a couple more answers to Tamiyo? Maybe. Solitude is kind of awkward as an answer to Tamiyo. I have a ton of things that don't pitch to it. I don't have that many threats in my deck is kind of the thing, so boarding out 4 threats for slightly more efficient answers is sketchy. I haven't seen a pivot like Murktide Regent yet. I could do, like, this that answers either side of Tamiyo and play 1 Pest Control that can cycle. This is weird. Well, that just feels like it dies to my opponent going fetch land pass into Doomsday. I think I mulligan this looking for something that can do a discard spell. Yeah, this is reasonable. I'll keep this and get rid of one of the expensive cards. Probably the Boil. Alright, opponent is going now. Thanks, I hate it. Hopefully Deafening Silence buys me time for Price of Freedom to do something good. Alright, here's what we're looking at. I don't see the Lion's Eye Diamond, so I imagine that is the route that my opponent is trying to go, and hopefully Deafening Silence disrupts that. I sure don't see Force of Wills here, which might mean that they are just in my opponent's hand, and I just have the illusion of playing Magic the Gathering here. Alright, Deafening Silence in play. Undraw into Prismatic Ending on Deafening Silence. Opponent can potentially just win from here, depending on what is already in their hand. Yeah, so if there's a Cycler here, they've got it. Ooh, there's not. So the Thassa's Oracle is presumably still on top of Library. I think I Pest Control to kill the LED. So go red-black. I Pest Control to kill LED, and then hope that that buys me a turn. Problem is that my opponent just plays Thassa's Oracle, and because these are all non-white cards, I just lose. There's Ponder. Yeah, there's Street Wraith, so this is the Thassa's Oracle, and the Solitude wouldn't bail me out there. Blah. GG's. I do not have any confidence in this deck at this stage. I officially hate this deck. It just can't cast its spells. Alright, I mean, auto mulligan. The fuck? I mean, I guess I keep this and hope we're playing against a creature deck with only non-basic lands. I'll play a land and pass the turn. My body is ready for another fucking basic island. Alright, my land destruction stuff should, in theory, do something. Chrome Mox. Printing Sundering Eruption. Desperate Ritual. Unexpected. Alright, so we are Ruby Storm rather than Red Stompy. These probably aren't going to do a lot unless my opponent drops like a Burgie or something. Rite of Flame. What I was talking about in the deck tech. Oh, we're doing this shit? Joy. Yeah. Let's just take a look at this shit. So this is just a different version of Oops that has Blood Moon Cheese and Goblin Charbelchers as things it can do. Ironcrag Feet gets you directly to 7 mana for Charbelcher plus activate. Hexing Squelchers forces everything through. Well, the good news is my opponent has no non-basic lands. Bad news is Dread Return Thassa's Oracle kills me on turn 1. That was a fun Magic card that Wizards of the Coast left legal in this format for some reason. Opponent's deck is cool, though. I will give them that. GG. So, Null Rod seems good. Deafening Silence seems good. Containment Priest seems good. This is playable, I guess. So this becomes a what don't I want situation. The spot removal spells are not actually very good. I will probably not die to just Hexing Squelcher 2/2 beatdowns. So I guess like incidentally answering artifact mana that my opponent plays out is marginally better than Galvanic Discharge, I guess. So like Discharge and Swords can come out. Maybe most of the Erodes. And that can just be what we're doing. And I have inefficient things like Wrath of the Skies, Prismatic Ending, Pest Control to answer something that does slip its way into play. This is fine. It's very good at attacking my opponent's lands and can Thoughtseize to buy myself some time. On it mulligans. I will Thoughtseize you. The opponent is just trying to get me on a Blood Moon. I probably have to take that Blood Moon. I need these to be functional. I'm taking Blood Moon because it is a shield rather than anything else here. Thick Peak is 5-drop. Chromox, presumably imprinting the Rite of Flame. Imprinting a Thassa's Oracle. And opponent's just gonna play a Hexing Squelcher. Yeah, I'm not gonna lose to that. That is fine. I will just Wasteland my opponent and buy some time. I don't even think I used 2 cards on Hexing Squelcher. Alright, there's that one down. I eat 2 damage. I've drawn White Orchid Phantom, which I can't cast. Will be a plateau to round out my colors. I will fetch after this attack. Play Bowmasters. I think I will go ahead and do this and pay 2 life to keep my Bowmaster's body in play. Yeah. Good. And like I will Ghost Quarter one of these lands or White Orchid Phantom a land or whatever. So I know my opponent has a Rite of Flame still. I will name that and take it out. The other card is a Manamorphose, which, given that I have a Bowmasters in play, I will probably just let chill in hand. Will Ghost Quarter a land. Opponent didn't find a basic. Weird. Opponent's just going to pass the turn back. I am on sad beatdown strats, but that Deafening Silence is a pretty good draw. It does make my Wrath of the Skies incredibly awkward, and a bunch of my cards are not really castable right now, which has been a theme this league. Opponent's just passing. I will go in for 1. Opponent to 14. I will Cabal Therapy my opponent here and take my guaranteed hit. Flashback. Perhaps not the ideal card in this environment. I don't know that I need to use my Bowmasters to do either of those things. I am just going to die to my opponent finding a Goblin Charbelcher before I can cast my spells. Alright, not this time. Very nice. Punchies for 1. Yeah. And fetch a new white source. I don't think it matters whether the secondary color is black or red. I guess red. Second plateau. White Orchid Phantom. Blow up another land. And pass. At some point, I can consider taking out one of these cards. Alright, opponent's seen enough. It feels like I'm just fully dead the game that I'm on the draw here. Hopefully I'm wrong and my opponent can't turn 1 with all that much consistency, and I can get one of Deafening Silence or a piece of discard down. I'm also relatively dead to Blood Moon. I have 2 basic lands, and not that many outs to a Blood Moon. I think I'm probably dead if my opponent keeps 7. I can keep the Surgical Extraction hand that can't cast any of its spells at all. Tilt, 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 tilt. Opponent's kept 7. That's not great for me. I think I do mulligan this hand. Second hand's reasonable. I will keep it. And hope I don't get turned 1'd. The Surgical hand maybe doesn't get turned 1 by the Graveyard combo, but I think I do have to attempt to play reasonable Magic the Gathering. Oh, that's just a tapped land. That's great. Alright. That even lets me just, like, Thoughtseize on 1. I maybe want to do that on 2. Let's fetch Scrubland and leave open the possibility of casting that on turn 2. Thoughtseize you. None of those cards do anything. And the Dread Return is in hand, which is kind of nice. I might just be like taking Rite of Flame here. I could also just take Sunring Eruption and just take a land drop and then destroy another one next turn with White Orchid Phantom. Rite of Flame is the most immediate mana. Yeah, I think I'm taking Sunring Eruption. My opponent kept that as a 7. I am slightly surprised. Rite of Flame. Are you just cycling with Manamorphose? Flashback on Rite of Flame. Rite of Flame. That's the same 2 mana you just had. Manamorphose. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Like, it was possible to die there. A basic in respect of Blood Moon. Yeah. White Orchid Phantom. Blow up a land. Alright. We win. We win versus Oops variant. I feel like if my opponent just mulligans, I die. But they didn't mulligan, so we didn't die, and we have a win on the scoreboard. Ooh. One opening 7. One opening 7 where I can just cast my fucking spells. I beg you. I think all my opponent plays is lands. So I could just keep a hand that just plays double Disruptor Flute early in the game. I guess. Idiot punish. Alright, well, I guess I have to Solitude that Delver in the short term here. Take off a basic. Pitch a Solitude to do it. Goodbye, Delver. Get wrecked by Corey Steelcutter now because I'm on the draw. While I'm farting around with all this stuff, my opponent will just tempo kill me. There's a Brainstorm. Another Volcanic Island. And a DRC. You've got it. Erode is fine. I think I'm probably going to use a turn cycle to cast Disruptor Flute on, like, Force of Will first before I do something that looks like this. I think I am just willing to take a hit. And let's just make Force significantly worse. Another DRC? Cantrip would be beefy at this stage. Like, that's not happening. Then I will take a hit. Oh, that's really good. I think I will pass the turn and just chill here. I want my opponent to put something on the stack and then Bowmaster in response. Yeah, so this is a pretty good opportunity to go for this. Hopefully ping one of these and kill it. And then I can get the other with Erode in a minute. And as long as I play around Daze, my stuff should resolve. Alright, opponent finds the Lightning Bolt. Saying no to a Force of Will. Unsurprising. Would you like to trade for my Orc Army token? No? Alright. Suit yourself. Ghost Quarter. Let's start by eroding this threat. There's presumably a basic land. Yep. I can do something like Disruptor Flute on Corey Steelcutter to slow it down. I think I will probably do that. Some of the lists that have Delver don't have Corey Steelcutter, though, which would make this an awkward name. I think I'm just gonna name it anyway. Even if there's only like 2 of them in the build. It coming down before I start destroying lands is pretty annoying. And I don't like super need to put the Yorion in the hand this turn or anything. I took a second to pull up some lists. Some of the Delver lists have like 2. Opponent has more land destruction than I do right now. Apparently should have named Flow State. That's a real bad turn cycle for me. Yep. That's very awkward. Don't have a basic mountain to be able to do Ghost Quarter tricks. This turn instead is going to be bring Yorion to hand. I guess I will hold back on the off chance that DRC does not become a 3/3 flyer. Seems unlikely. Like, there's onboard Wastelands that just do it. Yeah. The 1 point of missed damage is a very low cost for if my opponent wants to, like, pass the turn with Hardcast Force of Will, Pitchcast Force of Will, pay 3 mana available. It is turn 6, and I do not have one of my colors. And I'm really fucking far away from bringing Phlage back from graveyard because neither one of these lands contributes to it. I wish I drew real cards rather than Disruptor Flutes. Yep. I'm going to die to that so quickly. Alright. I might need to Ghost Quarter their Wasteland so that I can keep a red source, then get dazed for it. Oh, there was Corey Steelcutter, by the way. Alright, take this out. So I know that my opponent just has 1 basic island, which is what I would have expected anyway. I now get Plateau and attempt to Phlage, but I've been playing around Daze all game, so this is the first Dazeable spell that I've done. Yeah, I just can't afford to take the extra 3 damage here. So I take 11 here. If I top deck an Answer to the Murktide, I'm technically not dead to this. But life's bad. Kept a hand expecting to play against lands, got super punished when that was not the case. Thundering Falls comes back down. And that's another card that is not a removal spell. So I need to cast one of these that cantrips. And then draw into, like, an Erode. That will not do it. We are very dead. I could not cast my spells this game, which is the norm playing this deck, unfortunately. GG's. So I can get a few more removal spells in. I do not want these Surgical Extractions. They're going to be the first thing that goes, and these Disruptor Flutes are not amazing. I can play them to put on Wasteland. I am also a Wasteland deck. It's awkward. Like, I could bring in a 4-drop versus a Daze deck, or play 2 Disruptive Flutes that I don't think are very good. I can't cast my spells with the mana base of this deck. Jeez, alright. I'm going to keep this one. The Solitude and the Cabal Therapy are both pretty bad. Solitude because I can't realistically hard cast it, and I don't have a white thing to pitch to it after I cast Swords. So I guess I pitch that, and we try to work towards cheesing a win via Boil. I am going to Cabal Therapy my opponent. Wow. I mean, I will take the 2-for-1 there. I was thinking about naming Force of Will as my card there, so I would have hit. Opponent has a creature. I will remove that. I will remove that with Galvanic Discharge. Save the Pyroblast for potentially hitting something like a Flow State later. Also banks some energy. Yeah, just 1 here. 2 energy left around for later. I need more mana. Misty comes down. Another DRC comes down. I will just wait and remove that around a Daze. Cool. Let's Swords that. Opponent can like potentially fetch and get a little Surveil value. Sure. Keeps a card on top. I'm looking to dodge Corey Steelcutter. Like that getting on board as something that dodges Pyroblast would be pretty bad for me. I can end of turn Surveil. Probably white-red in respect of accidentally finding a Phlage. I'm just going to take that land drop and cast Boil. I don't think I cast it this turn. I haven't given my opponent a Daze target yet. I think with 1 more land drop, I can just do this around Daze. And if my opponent's opening hand theoretically was something like DRC, Force of Will, Hydroblast, land, you can have that. Then maybe that explains why they went for the Cabal Therapy, because they felt like if I named a creature, I named DRC, and if I name a spell, I name Brainstormer Force of Will, probably Force of Will. Wasteland's awkward for me. I'm trying to Boil. They're taking me off black. Alright. I will White Orchid Phantom. I think I will just get my own flagstones here. Opponent hasn't used their basic island yet. I can get the basic swamp to get that color back. And I can say yes. Maybe I should have done this with like Shadowy Backstreet instead, so I Surveil. Get Plateau so I don't get knocked off of red. I'm not going to Cabal Therapy here. There's timelines where I do before I Boil, especially if my opponent fetches some more cards out. Alright, in for 2. Opponent to 16. Boil is destroy 2 lands, which is not bad. I can try to grind more value out of it. I think I'm just going to accept that degree of value and cast it. That is acceptable. Alright, I Boil 2 lands away. I can Pyroblast a Flow State or a Murktide Regent. Bobble is fine. You've got it. There's a little tension here between how I would potentially cast a Yorion. That's a Phlage. That's neat. My mana is very, very awkward here for doing this. I think I just am casting Lightning Helix with the ability to rebuy it. So I'm going to send that at my opponent's face, and I think legitimately just bounce this back to my hand to do it again. Like, this is just what I'm doing with my life right now. I wish I had extra red mana available here. I need like red, white, plus Karakas to do that. But I've got Lightning Helix on a stick, so that's something. Another land drop comes down. I have Pyroblast for Murktide. As long as my opponent doesn't have Force of Will backup for it, I'm okay. That's totally fine as well. I think I start by just trying to do this. And just attempt to take this out without using 2 cards. I fail. I can take 7 to just untap and Solitude, but that's pretty bad if I get Wastelanded. So I think I am going to give up the Yorion, take this out immediately, send Phlage to Graveyard, doing Lightning Helix again. I'm at 25. I can get Phlage out of Graveyard next turn if I Ghost Quarter myself for basic planes. Okay, we win that one. GG. I don't think I have anything that I really can change for sideboarding. Unless I'm trying to like surgical flow states. Again, just one 7-card hand where I can reasonably cast all of my spells, please. Fuck. This is terrible. So this is missing a color. Another one of the colors is tapped only. I can go to 5 looking for reasonable mana, or I can keep something that gets bodied by Wasteland. I think I'm going to keep something that gets bodied by Wasteland. Alright, it is not an immediate threat, which is good because I can't answer an immediate threat. I think Shadowy Backstreet just has to look for another land. That's not a land. That's not a land. Going to have an aneurysm from playing this deck. Yup. Absolutely. Okay. At least I drew another land. That is legitimately helpful. Or a Steelcutter has got to go there. Alright. My opponent's hand does nothing. My hand does nothing. There's one of the 2 Misties coming down. Oh my god, I've drawn more land. I'm in it. I could maybe win if we keep, like, drawing land. Another Misty comes down. Let's potentially get a Force of Will out of my opponent's hand. Negative. Gonna let that resolve. Take it. Land drop. Munchies. Alright, so now we're gonna, like, bolt it or whatever. Is a Prismari Charm. I can Pyroblast that, and then have my opponent Hydroblast it back. I think I am okay with that exchange. I will fetch, grab a Plateau, attempt to counter that spell, and my opponent can fetch, and Hydroblast. So the board is now clear. I have a removal spell for a lot of the things that my opponent could draw. Another Quarry Steelcutter would be very, very, very bad. But I'm okay versus, like, a DRC. Consign makes Solitude worse. I guess Consign makes both of my removal spells worse, actually. Wasteland's very, very, very good against me right now. Alright, there's DRC. And my opponent has Consign open for a Phlage trigger. This will get my opponent an island. I'm thinking about whether or not I just legitimately want to draw a card with Price of Freedom. It's a thing that can answer a Quarry Steelcutter, though. Alright, let's just do this. And I can maybe thread this game in a way where a Phlage trigger gets to actually mess with something. Alright, I have drawn a land, but I've already made my land drop for turn. So we'll just call that good. What a disaster. I'm going to take 3 from this. My opponent can potentially just protect this to a win. I'm going to get an elegant parlor here. I know that I don't have access to black, but I think the Phlage colors just matter too much. Yeah, that's fine. Let's put that on top. Land drop. Attempt discharge. Alright, it does just die. 3 damage immediately. Then I will send this to hand as something to potentially pair with Solitude later. Flow state into flow state. Classic. A new DRC, but this time opponent does not have open mana for Consign, which is cool. My Phlage will probably get Force of Willed, but, like, I get a point where it makes sense for me to cast this. I am up to 5 mana to hardcast some of these threats as well, but I think it just makes sense to use Phlage while I can, and have Phlage be the Force of Will fodder. Alright, it's in play. I think I'm going to let it go to graveyard and threaten that. It's possible Caracas bouncing it is better, as just, like, rebuying Lightning Helix is definitely a thing. I think I just have enough mana, though, where I want to be able to cast cards. Seems like my opponent wants Murktide Regent backed by Force of Will as well, and that's certainly scary. Yep, that is an 8/8. That will kill me in 2 successful connections, and I know that my opponent has Force of Will. This would be an okay time to draw a Cabal Therapy or whatever. Oh, I've already used my other Prevail land. Guess I'm getting a scrub. Maybe Badlands. Red, 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 white, white, white. Badlands. So how do I get Force out of hand? Is it by casting Phlage? It might just be by casting Phlage. Red, white, junk 5 cards from graveyard. I don't think it matters at all for the purposes of my deck. There's Phlage. What I want to see is Force of Will, pitching Consign, and then I can Solitude. Alright, Phlage hits play. Send that at face. I'm now not in the point where I die to 2 Murktide Regent hits. Yeah, I will just let that go to graveyard, I think. I don't think I need to bounce that. Alright, that's good. That means I still know most of my opponent's hand here. I will go ahead and take 8, and then I will repeat the same thing that I did last turn. Opponent can redraw. Oh, that's another way that I could potentially get the Force of Will. Maybe just let it resolve, though. I don't think I can take that risk. I think I do this again as my bait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Phlage. Alright, Phlage is in play. Send that trigger at face. Opponent to 11. I still have not successfully gotten them to use their Force of Will, which is problematic for me. So I will take 8 here. Going to 5. I can gain 3 more with Phlage. I think I'm trying to play White Orchid Phantom as a blocker that my opponent Force of Wills. In we go. Send at face. I'm at exactly 8. So now I play a blocker to get in the way. Hope that gets Force of Will. There's a Brainstorm in response. Opponent to 1. Pitching Brainstorm. I am hoping they don't have Consign still. Alright, Solitude. Pitching Yorion. Big moment here. Is that Consign still there? It is. I still have an out. I need to redraw into a 1-mana white removal spell off of this. I guess I can blow up Flooded Strand. I don't think I'm going to do that. Alright. Redraw, please. Miss. I am dead to Murktide Regent. Well played by my opponent there. Like, I was trying to thread a line for many, many turns where I could resolve that Solitude, and opponent did not let me do that. I tried to bait that Force of Will so many different times. None of them were successful. GG's. Alright, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Absolutely terrible. This deck cannot cast its spells with any degree of reliability. And I think rearranging the mana base will show this off really well. So this is a deck that is running Wasteland and Ghost Quarter, which do not contribute to any of the 3 colors. And now let's also pull over here any of the lands that only contribute to one of the colors in the deck. So over half of the lands in the deck do not cast like any 2 of these spells chosen at random. And considering that the deck also wants white-black and white-white and red-red, white-white, this is ridiculous. In addition to just not being able to cast its spells, it is just so easy for your opponent to outplay you without even trying. With these Price of Freedom, Cleansing Wildfire things, if you're on the play and your opponent just goes fetch land pass, like you have been outplayed and now your 2 mana cards don't work, I wish that I did not play this deck. Which is not something that I say very often. We got bodied when our opponent played this, but we were playing a rather questionable deck at the time, if memory serves. I understand how this deck could get into the 5-0 deck list dump. Like, if you run Hotter Than the Sun, like, you can just run into a bunch of matchups where your opponents don't have any basics and just everything is free. But I think the deck has a lot of very, very bad cards in the main deck as well. The main deck Surgicals were atrocious. The main deck Disruptor Flutes were not particularly good either. Yeah, this one was a stinker. I was very excited to see it in the 5-0 deck list dump, and I was hoping that it would be better than I thought it was when I played against it. But, nope, it was just bad. It can't cast its spells. But that's okay. Sometimes it is worth playing a league with something to see how it is performing in actuality. And I'm okay with the thought experiment that we did today of trying to make this work. With that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day here. I hope this was enjoyable, despite the fact that it didn't cast its spells particularly well. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. And if you have anything you want to see on the channel, the donation decklist information is available in every single video description. Have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya!